Welcome back to the OHSU Effect. I'm Lacey Evans, and joining me once again is Dr. Tom Baer, a prostate cancer expert at the Knight Cancer Institute, and Dr. Larry Axmaker, a cancer survivalist who both participated in clinical trials, and they've recently written a book called Cancer Clinical Trials, A Common Sense Guide to Experimental Cancer Therapies and Clinical Trials. Thank you both for continuing our conversation. So I wanted to start with you, Dr. Baer, about personalized cancer medicine. What is that? And can you tell us about trials for those therapies?
Yeah, so, historically, we've treated cancer in what one might call a one-size-fits-all approach, or one-size-hopefully-fits-all. We've developed cancer drugs for large groups of patients. We've often found that 30, 40, 50% of them benefit, and perhaps a similar percentage doesn't, but we had to try them in every patient to see what happens. And even those patients who derived no benefit had to experience the side effects and the costs associated with therapy. We are now getting to the point where the Human Genome Project and subsequent efforts to really dissect the biology of cancer are providing us answers about what drives each individual cancer. And we're beginning to see cancer drugs that are designed specifically to target a defect that is present in an individual human cancer, and so we can begin to match therapies up to individual patients. That's what personalized therapy is about. One of the first examples of that was Gleevec, a drug that Dr. Brian Drucker helped develop that targets chronic myelogenous leukemia. That was a targeted drug for patients with that particular defect. This past year, we've seen actually something very new, which is 2 cancer drugs approved by the FDA together with a tumor test that determines if the drug should or shouldn't be used. There's a new drug for lung cancer that targets a mutation called ALK, and a new drug for melanoma, a devastating form of skin cancer that targets a mutation in the gene called BRAF. And patients only get those drugs if their cancer is very likely to respond to them. And that's where we see the future.
Well, how can people get more information about cancer clinical trials? Is this something that their doctor would recommend to them, or should they look for trials on their own?
Well, I think we're both big advocates of both of those. I think patients need to have an honest and open conversation with their oncologists about their interest in clinical trials, and they may find that their oncologists are knowledgeable and able to advise them about that. But we also think that in the 21st century, people need to be educated about their particular health problems. And so, and certainly clinical trials are something that not all physicians are involved in, not all physicians are highly familiar with, and I think patients would do well to get educated themselves. There are many resources out there. We recently started a blog at cancer-clinical-trials.com. It's just a nascent a blog that's getting started where we hope to share knowledge about clinical trials that would be useful to people. We also have a resource page there that can provide some of the main links on the web to resources that people can pursue. Probably the most important one is the National Cancer Institute at cancer.gov. And the American Cancer Society at cancer.org. But there are many other places on the web where folks can learn about clinical trials. We've got those listed on our blog. I would start with the National Cancer Institute.
Larry, how did you hear about your trials? Were you instructed by a doctor, or did you go out and try to find it on your own?
Well, in some cases, I was instructed by a doctor in one case, and in other cases, I was contacted because somebody doing the trial knew I had prostate cancer. So I did not actually have to go out and look for them myself, which was easy for me because it's complicated. If you go onto the site like the National Cancer Institute, there are hundreds and hundreds of clinical trials going on, so sorting through it can be difficult. And that's one of the things that we talk about in the book, is making that a little easier. But certainly, talking to oncologists and talking to other people who have been in clinical trials is a help.
Could I jump in for a second?
Yes.
So I think, with regard to the doctor side of this, people need to know that there is a range of levels of interest and involvement amongst oncologists in cancer clinical trials. Virtually all of the oncologists that work at academic medical centers, such as the Knight Cancer Institute, are very likely to be up to date on that and interested. There are many community oncologists who also are, so it's not just at OHSU. But there are also some oncologists out there who deliver excellent standard care, but don't have a deep interest in cancer research. So I think those when patients get interested in clinical trials, it's worth asking their doctor, can you advise me in this area, or should I get a second opinion, or should I go online and educate myself?
Well, are there any promising clinical trials for cancer drugs that are coming up in the Portland area or that are available here?
Boy, that's there are hundreds of active clinical trials in prostate cancer alone, which is my area. We typically have between 10 and 15 active clinical trials at any time, and I think the current crop is as promising as we've ever had.
They wouldn't be doing the clinical trial if it wasn't promising.
Yeah. Here in the Portland area, the simplest way to get up to speed on that is to go to the Knight Cancer Institute's website and click on clinical trials, and there's a search engine there that can tell you what is going on right now.
Well, you mentioned your blog, so I want you to mention it again and tell us about your book and when it will be available.
So the blog is at cancer-clinical-trials.com. And we post about twice a week or so about various topics related to cancer clinical trials. We welcome comments. Larry's got some wonderful cartoons there. They didn't make it into the book, but we've got them on the blog, and I'm very excited about that. The book is likely to come out in the first week of April. It's available for pre-order now, and you can learn about that on our blog. It's also entitled Cancer Clinical Trials, and it really is an A to Z guide to how to find, how to choose a clinical trial, how to think about it, what are the hints about how to be a participant in studies, how to learn what the results might be. We kind of think of the blog and the book as two sides of the same coin. On the blog, we can highlight a very focused area we want to discuss, and the unique thing about the blog, of course, is there's room for conversation, but we can't paint the whole big picture. That's where the book comes in, and I think the two will work together very nicely.
Well, good. And it sounds like it's going to help a lot of people. So we'll be looking for that in April. And you can get a link to the website on the OHSU EFFECT page, which is at kxl.com. Just look for the OHSU EFFECT page. Dr. Tom Baer and Dr. Larry Axmaker, thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having me.